Okay, welcome back to Fast Jet Performance there. My name is Tim Davies, and as you can see, we are back in the attack shack, dropping truth bombs on your personal battlefields, helping you to win the wars you are fighting. And I'm answering an email today, guys. I'm not going to burden you with that, but it's a young dude, I believe, and they just said, hey Tim, you did mention alcohol cessation in the past, and can you just give us a little bit about where you are on your journey? And that's fine, a little bit uncomfortable for me, but I thought I'd do it anyway, and I'm just going to freestyle for like 5 minutes about where I am now with that. Alcohol cessation, a bit of an American term, isn't it? So the dude's probably American. But if you remember, guys, 1st of January this year, then I just stopped drinking. I've been trying to stop drinking for a long time. Definitely the last 5 years since I came out of the military. I was in the Royal Air Force, so I'm sure you're aware, flying these jets here, Tornado and Hawk. And drinking was part of that culture. I'm not blaming anyone for that, by the way. I'm no victim when it comes to this. My family's got a bit of a history, and my parents, of alcoholism or alcohol dependency or whatever you want to call it. I kind of fell into that trap. I'll talk a little bit about why I did that or why that happened and what I've kind of done since then. But the main thing about it, guys, is I just want you to have a look at the comments down there. And if you think that me talking about, coming from flying jets, whatever, yeah, and having an alcohol issue with that, and then coming and doing something about it, if you think that has some kind of utility for you as a person, or people or it's just content that you think you want to see again, basically, whack it in the comments, because the 3 things I tend to put out, I tend to put out videos about defense and, maybe jets in Ukraine, that kind of stuff, whatever, our defense secretary, maybe it's what I perceive as racism rife throughout in our military or whatever, that kind of stuff. I also put out stuff, as you know, about my school. I run a school, so flying videos from DCS, it's a video game, digital combat sim, and I talk about maybe what we did in these aircraft and how I do that in the game. And the other kind of content I put out really, I'm not really too sure, maybe emails from young people looking to get into the military, or maybe podcasts. So those kind of 3 things are there. Maybe you prefer one sort of thing to the other. I do get people in the comments saying, Tim, these videos are rubbish, do more DCS, or Tim, the DCS videos are rubbish, do more like real life stuff. So I'm really interested in what you think about the comments. And of course, what I don't really want to be doing is become one of these right-wing kind of, the guys that are just slamming it the whole time. We realize the politics in all our countries are nuanced, and we don't have all the information. And all I'm interested really is where that meets the road with the Royal Air Force or meets the road with the British military. The rest of it and the politics and everything else, it's not that I skip it, but I don't want it to be heavy whacking the channel about gender ideology or stuff like that. That's more relevant to other people than me, and it's probably not the greatest channel for it in the world. So by all means, write in the comments, just give me that kind of feedback. Guys, look, I don't want to take too long. So what we're going to talk about is how I kind of got into the drinking aspect and how I kind of made it into something and what I'm doing now about it. So when I was young, my father was a police traffic officer. He died back in 2011. He was a police officer in the United Kingdom, driving traffic cars, firearms, ex-Royal Marine, all that kind of stuff. I've spoken about him before on my channel. And when he came back from work, one of the things he would do is he'd crack a beer and have some whiskey, and he'd sit there in front of the television, and it was a way of him decompressing, I believe, after the busy day that he'd had on the roads of southern Portsmouth. And it was a thing, and it became a thing with him. And he actually stopped drinking in his early 60s, and he died a few years later, before his 65th birthday. I think he died before his 65th birthday. So I saw that, and I kind of took that, I guess, in some subconscious way to mean that when you'd finished your day's work, then that was what you did. You sat down and you had that release. You kind of offloaded and you had a beer, and that's what men did. And I did that for many years. And when I flew, there were rules about flying and alcohol, but we all used to hit the bar, especially when I was training back in the early noughties, it would have been, so 03 onwards, I guess, for me. You go and debrief in the bar. You'd have a debrief with the instructor, but they're like, hey, you going to the bar? I'm going to the bar. You going to the bar? And you go and get some smash on, you have a few beers and you drink through, and it was great. It was awesome. That's what you did. I was a naval officer, so there was a big thing about drinking in the Navy as well. When I came to the Royal Air Force, it was slightly different, but it hadn't really changed. You still went to the bar, had a few beers, and it was a great experience, flying, training, everything else. And you woke up in the morning and it was about, you've had a few beers in the evening, be ready the next day. And that kind of breeded something, that kind of bred some kind of purpose or some kind of ability that no matter what happened, you had to be there for it, if that makes sense. So you had to be prepped for it. It's just that alcohol was the mechanism that was used for. And we all loved it. We all did. It was fantastic. Bars were on squadrons, bars were in the officers' mess, and it was just a great time. That's also one of the ways you meet all the old and bold pilots on the jets, and that's really how you learn as well. Is having a few beers with people. People relax, and you ask them stuff, and you learn so much information. And I think that has kind of stopped now. It was stopping when I left the military back in 2018. So maybe that is over. I'm just saying. Maybe that is something that's not existent anymore, and I don't really know. But maybe it's different times, right? So I had that, and then when I left the military, I actually stopped for a full year. I think in about 2016, I realized I was drinking. It was a bit of a thing, and so I took 2016 off completely. And I was living in the middle of Bristol on a secondary job. I didn't drink for an entire year. I wasn't very happy with that, and some people I spoke to said, Tim, the reason that you're feeling these kind of withdrawals is because of the lack of sugar in your blood. So they said, go and drink loads of Coke and have loads of chocolate. And I did that, and I didn't lose any weight at all. And I spent the whole year just, I guess, on sugar highs. I hadn't really considered the fact that we're addicted massively to sugar in processed foods and everything else. It's a huge factor. So when I stopped in this year, in fact, I made sure that I wasn't going to lean into that sugar thing at all. And the reason I stopped was because I realized I was putting a lot of weight on. I was reaching about 240 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilograms. I think it's like 105, which is quite big, but I've always been a bigger chap, right? 6'1", that kind of thing. And when I was flying on the jet, I was 92 kilograms, and I never really went above that. But leaving the military, COVID, stagnant, all that kind of stuff that came in, I guess I was at home the whole time, most of the time, just putting on weight and just drinking. And drinking was the big thing, and I didn't think too much of it. It was a few beers in the evening. But it wasn't a few beers. It was 12 to 14 tins of beer. I might have some photos I can put up here because I believe in honesty, right? I'm helping people out. I like to think I am. And every night I would run through that. To people that aren't drinking, that seems like a lot. To people that are drinking, they're like, dude, you're only drinking lager, who cares, right? And I get it. I get it from both angles. I fully understand that. For me, that was every night. I like to think, looking back, that I really enjoyed that. And I'd sit in front of the computer and I'd rage on Twitter. And I'd really have some interesting arguments and some dialogue and everything else whilst having all this kind of beer and everything else, you know what I mean? And it was great. I've got no issue with that. But of course, like anything, it takes its toll. And it was really the weight that made me kind of think. I was rowing as well down at a rowing club. And I was getting in the boats, feeling heavy, wasn't feeling athletic. And I was thinking, this is not going to end. Like, this is not ever going to end. Like, my drinking is never going to end. I'd had members of the family that already stopped. My mother had quit before. As I said, my father did stop before he drank, and I had an older sister who was involved in alcohol as well, and she managed to do something with that. And it was really good, actually, that she managed to do it. It's a bit of inspirational, you know what I mean? It was pretty cool. I think in our family, we have kind of like a dopamine thing where we're just reaching out for that thing just to keep us on that kind of high. I don't know why it is or where it's come from, because there is no history further on in the family of having out like that. It's nothing like that. So I don't know where it's come from. But either way, alcohol for me, or a few beers in the evening for me, was just the thing. I haven't really spoken about it until now. This guy asking his email, fair enough. I don't want to make it a thing. What I mean by that is I'm not embarrassed about it. I flew jets for a long time with people that are doing the same thing as me. I don't know where those dudes are right now, but I wish them all the best, right? But it was the life that we just led. I realized at the age of 48 that I was going to be 58, 68. I was never going to be 78, but drinking like I was drinking, and that doesn't work out. Like, if you said to someone, are you going to be drinking 12 to 14, almost pints of lager every night when you're in your mid 50s? Yeah, probably. Mid 60s? No. Mid 70s? Definitely not. You'd be dead. My father was dead before 65. I just thought, maybe I need to address this a little bit. Now, we've got to have that kind of self-talk with each other. We got to sit down at some point, and my wife was very good about it because she realized the pressure that she put on me would probably mean that I wasn't going to do anything about it, and I hadn't done it. And 5 years coming out of the military, I really hadn't done much about it. If anything, I'd probably just accelerated it. But I had some bad times with alcohol that should have been good times. And what I mean by that is we went to weddings or went somewhere else or whatever, and I don't remember the alcohol adding to that experience at all. If anything, it really detracted from it. I never used to get hangovers, and if you drink constantly like I did, you just don't get a hangover. Whatever people say. I don't speak to some alcoholics, maybe they're like, yeah, I get a raging hangover, but they're probably just doing a bottle of whiskey every night, and that's what's causing it. If you're not sobering up, then you're not getting a hangover. And I was drinking lager, and arguably lager, of course, has a high water content. And over here in the UK, I was thinking, what was I drinking? Well, whatever's in the picture I showed you. So primarily Carling and Foster's I never did. That'll make you depressed. The blues will make you depressed. The blue beers will. Greens aren't worth drinking. And then I went on to a bit kind of like Stella. I felt it was a cleaner beer. I never really got the rage from it. Like, but I did sometimes. So there was this whole balance. The tins were getting bigger, the strength was getting more. I was getting some illnesses as well. Things just kind of hurting in the body, didn't really know what it was. And I hadn't really seen a doctor, and I didn't really want to see a doctor. And there was that kind of side to it as well, that, you know, you don't really want to go and speak to someone because you're causing this yourself. And they say about alcohol, it's suicide by just another means. And I think I was probably in that. I think when I left the military, it was a very tumultuous affair for many reasons. And I think I was probably looking down that road of, I don't want a beer anymore. And alcohol is my road out. Like it's an acceptable way out. I haven't got to go and, I've talked about this before, I haven't got to go and hang myself in my garage and cause family massive disharmony, but I could drink myself into oblivion and people would say, oh, it's familial, it's that kind of stuff, it's fine. He obviously had demons, and it's understandable. So I haven't built a course, and I don't really advise people on alcohol at the moment because I feel like I'm on a little bike with stabilizers. Every day is not a bad day, but every day isn't a great day. It really isn't. It's a day. Arguably it's a day when I'm not drinking, and a lot of the time I want to. Like a few days ago, I said to my wife, I said, it's a hard day. I don't know why. It's a hard day. I want to drink everything. I want to do everything. I can still go into a bar. I don't drink the non-alcoholic stuff, but I don't, you know what I mean? I'll you know, I'm a tea guy, right? But I'll have a non-alcoholic cider or something. I just don't particularly want to be doing that low alcohol stuff. You know, I think to myself, yeah, you can have a beer, but I know it would probably just be one beer into 26 beers. I've been skiing, you know, I've done some pretty difficult things since I haven't drunk, and actually they're not too bad. And actually kind of helps if someone else is there also not drinking. And sometimes that's a woman there that's not drinking, maybe she's into fitness or something like that. And that's pretty cool because you can chat about stuff. And I'm sort of pushing myself more into that fitness sort of side of things. What is this now? This is getting quite long, 12 minutes, I'll cut it down. So that really is it. Maybe that's a help, maybe it's not. But all I'm saying is, look, I can talk more about this if you want me to talk more about this. But if you don't want me to talk more about this, then don't worry about it. Just say, no, I prefer the DCS stuff, Tim. I prefer the other stuff. It's all good. Because as I said, you know, it's a growing thing for me. I do talk about it in the school a little bit to help dudes out. But, you know, my journey is a journey. And I'm not this kind of like, oh, for the rest of my life. It's not like that. You know what I mean? I'm kind of cool with it right now. And I know that the exercise and the fitness is so much easier when you're not drinking, 110%. The diet is much better squared away. Because, of course, a lot of the weight you put on from alcohol, people talk about it coming from alcohol, and I understand that, but it's actually the eating you do when you're sitting there bored, necking lagers, just eating crisps or whatever. That's a lot of where the weight comes from, and the inactivity as well. That's why people put stuff on. I haven't dropped a massive amounts of weight. 20 pounds, 22 pounds like that since over 6 months. You know, it's a gradual thing for me. You know, pretty sedentary life. I try and keep quite active as much as I can, but I'm not walking around the whole time in a workplace because I tend to work from home. That's really about it, guys. I do hope that helps. I just thought, you know, I'd fill this guy in where I was, and if it helps, let me know. Anyway, I really appreciate it. Okay, Tim Davies, Flagship Performance.